Good afternoon, everyone. Here we are at our second episode of Second Acts in our series, where we are engaging with people in the second half of life who have transitioned in some way or other, um, some younger, some older. And Jayshree and I have known one another for I think we met in 2010, Jayshree, when you were at the Development Bank. And so I have known Jayshree for 15 years, in and out, on and off in the same room, but have always admired the work you do and who you are as a human being. And so it really is a pleasure for us to be able to chat to you today and learn from you. And then in the second half of the session, we will get some questions going. So you can either put them in the chat or you can wait and then, use your hand to be able to ask the question. So this is a series run by 50 Plus, and I am the CEO of 50 Plus. So we will send a mail out with the recording and details after the session. But for now, let's get going. So Jayshree, let's talk about the young Jayshree in the first quarter of your life. So tell us about who you were and where you were at that part of your journey.
So I loved getting your questions, and I had to smile when I saw that. I just realized that I'd actually had both my kids by the time I was 25. I'd already been married for 6 years. Don't worry, not child marriage and forced into it. It was by choice. I met my husband when I was 16. So by 25, I'd already been married for 6 years, had two beautiful children, and I was already on my second job by the time I was 25, Linda. I had to reflect on that. And it was quite an interesting one as well. At that age, I had just still finding my way, but that's where I was at 25 already.
And where did you live? And were you
So I was
full-time mom or
born.
had you studied?
So I was born in a little Indian township, not that little, called Chatsworth in Durban. I come from a family of four. I have, sorry, five. I have a brother and a sister. And my dad worked all his life. He worked in the same company for 42 years. By the time I got to wanting to study, both my siblings had used their bursaries and hadn't completed. So, we realized I couldn't really do any sort of formal education at the time. I wasn't as smart in school, so I didn't qualify for a bursary. But I did decide to study computer science, which was something I really, really enjoyed. I was able to fund some of those studies, through some work that I did part-time, and just loved the space of computers. And I remember the first code I ever wrote was for a washing machine. I think everyone wrote that same piece of code for those of you that are in the technology space. So it was a very, very interesting path that I had taken. As I mentioned, I then got married, and I then started studying through the company that I joined, which was one of the big banks in this country. And I started my formal, academic journey with that large organization.
Great. So tell us more about Jayshree in your early professional career. Where were you? I can't remember how old you were when I met you at the Development Mag.
I was actually in my 30s, and this is quite an interesting journey because, very often as individuals, and for those of you that are watching the recording and you might not be sure as well, you actually think you have to know everything when you are like 18 or 19 and you have to know what you want to study. But very often, as you embark on a career, you realize that you might want to study something completely different. And what I started doing in the early parts of my career was starting to look at trends. And I know it sounds crazy, but I started to look for where were the opportunities, what were people, trying to actually achieve at the time, what were they what jobs were being advertised. And in those days, you would advertise in like the Sunday Times. I don't even think LinkedIn was around at that time. So I would read through the Sunday Times, I would look at the types of jobs, and I decided to, instead of just studying for one formal qualification, I would study in terms of what is required at different companies. So I studied things like furthered my computer science, where I went and did an MCSC, which is a certified systems engineer. I then studied project management. I then got a job, in one of the large corporates. I remember very clearly when I was 29, I applied for a very senior position in one of the big banks in South Africa, and I went for the interview. And in those days, it was still okay for people to ask you how old you were. And when the gentleman asked me, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm in my 30." And I wasn't yet 30. But I know it was not grammatically correct, but I was 29 at the time. And I said, "I'm in my 30." And, I thought he might just write it off as a grammatical mistake. And I did end up getting that job, and it was to head up a CRM program for one of the large banks. And I loved it. And from there, I managed to, work my way into being offered a position at one of the large technology internet well, it was a internet company that provided internet for organizations. And thereafter, I was headhunted to join one of the largest medical aid companies in the country and head up, one of the divisions. When you met me, Linda, I was already on my sixth formal job. So I know it's like, you almost sound like it's job hopping, but it's almost, I get bored very easily. And I've only ever been in jobs that I wanted to be in, where I felt it aligned to my purpose and
Hey,
what I want
Mal.
to achieve. And when you met me at the DBSA, that was already my sixth
Thank you. How are you?
formal company. And I realized that
Good.
job was one of my turning points in my life and my career, because working in a development-led organization is different from working in a corporate. You start actually seeing what the real challenges of a country is, and the rates of unemployment and what's actually needed. And all of the stats you can see in terms of from the outside world, but you don't realize what needs to be done in the country, until you work in an organization like this. So I think that fueled my passion to where I am now. But that was in my 30s, Linda, when you and I met, and I was heading up strategy, innovation, and entrepreneurship at that time for the development bank.
Well, I think you and I have quite a few things in common. Maybe that's why we identify that in each other. I also get bored quite easily and passionate about learning and earning earning or working and learning simultaneously. And at the Green Light Movement conference last week, that's what they actually said is we're in a world now of working and learning constantly because of lifelong learning. And yet you were doing it very much in the early years. And hence, I think in the 100-Year Life book, they talk about a multi-stage life with a number of S curves. And so for you to have been through quite a few already, but you learn different skills from different angles. And that's what creates the wisdom that you have, as you move along the spectrum. So innovation was always something that you were passionate about. I think it was Ann Timms that invited me that day to the DBSA. And I was just fascinated. I just absolutely loved that day. And then I think we met over coffee one day again at Gibbs, where the program for civil engineers, where they were kind of connecting an older civil engineer in retirement with young people in civil engineering. And that process that I'd been followed had been taken over by the development MAC. And so we had these moments where we met. And then I met you again at the Innovation Hub at Standard Bank. So tell us a little bit about that part of the journey, because you were such an encourager to us at 50 plus. But tell us about that piece of your journey.
Well, thank you, Linda. As you speak, I realize, my gosh, I feel older than I look, ladies, maybe. I always use that joke. I normally get a laugh, right? But I feel like I've lived such a rich life. And by the time I got to Standard Bank, so after the DBSA, for those of you that are interested, I actually resigned. I decided to try my hand at entrepreneurship for the first time, and the second time, sorry. So I had resigned previously, and then I decided to resign, and I was actually running my own business very happily until I got a call from, the previous head of innovation at one of the other banks who had joined Standard Bank and said, "Would you come on board and help me build this focus on innovation?" It sounded like an amazing, amazing role, but at that time I was running my own business and just growing it and starting to get amazing clients like this bank that he had been a part of. And I had to give it some thought and I said, yes, I will, on the condition I can launch an incubator at the bank. And he said, well, if you help me develop the innovation focus and we build it, then you can focus on this incubator. And it was just a thought. It had come from years of wanting to support entrepreneurs, support people like you, Linda, support any individual that had a great idea but needed a space to grow that idea and a space to actually test and prototype and all of those other wonderful things we did at the incubator. So I did join Standard Bank. We then did launch the incubator. It was just an empty space. I remember walking through this empty, very old building and having a vision for hundreds of entrepreneurs coming in, using the space, engaging with one another, having a cup of coffee through that amazing coffee shop that was in there. And I got to do this for thousands of entrepreneurs. That's the beauty when you work in a large corporate. I love owning my own business. I love the work that we've done. But when you work in a large corporate, the ability to use that corporate book's checkbook for doing good is just an amazing feeling because you can actually impact so many more lives. And the incubator is something that will always remain close to my heart. At that time, I was already in the space of entrepreneurship for well over a decade. I loved it. So I love being able to do the work at the incubator. For those of you that don't know, the incubator is a space where entrepreneurs can come together, test certain things, have a space to work, and really just make magic with one another. And that was my journey at the incubator. One of the biggest, milestones with the incubator was being able to replicate this in Mozambique, and then later it was replicated in Ghana and in Kenya. So, to have those models live on and continuously add value across the continent is something that I'll always be extremely, extremely proud of. And it just excites me on the inside, knowing that it had an impact on individuals' lives.
Mm. Yeah, we launched 50 Plus in 2018, and we launched our first series of workshops at that incubator. And that was very special for us. It will always stand as one of those moments for us of being in the right kind of space for thinking about a longer career, about changing and thinking about why, as when we have a gift season beyond our professional life, we need to think and reflect and build and navigate that journey. And as I say, you understood it with us and you encouraged us, and that has always been something we'll be grateful for. So you were at a crossroads, or the ladder was changing direction around that time, 2018, 2019, if I remember. Tell us what happened at that crossroads and personally as well.
So it was in 2017, and this is a line I don't use lightly. And anyone that has been around me, understood that it wasn't just a line that I was using, but the line that I did use at the time in my corporate role was, I'm here because I want to be here, not because I have to be here. And I really wanted to be there. And the second part of that line was, when I'm no longer able to do, the work that I do, that's the time I will leave. So there came a point in my career where I was no longer able to live the vision I had had for the incubator, for reasons that I will not go into right now. But I have given a TEDx talk on the topic. It's called People Are So Much More Than the Jobs They Do. So I did decide to resign from my role at the incubator in Standard Bank after about 3.5 years. I had planned to be there for about 5 years. I would have left, after around 5 years. But at the time, it was just a bit sooner than I had anticipated. I resigned in November, and in December, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. But at that time, I'd already decided that we were going to relaunch our business, which is Yidi. Yidi is one of those, I would like to say, best kept secrets, but I decided to relaunch our business because it was registered in 2014, but then I went back into the corporate world. And It was quite a tough time because, being diagnosed with breast cancer, as you're thinking about launching a business, you've just given up your a seven-digit, figure salary in the corporate world, which I had done before, but this time it just hit harder. And you're now left with how do you deal with this? And then, things like thank God I took that dread disease cover, and thank God I saved, because for a year I had to focus on healing. I had to have multiple operations. I had a double mastectomy. So, that's a very, very long process for anyone that's been through that journey. It took me about a year in between three surgeries to fully recover. In between that time, I had chemo, and then I had, neoadjuvant treatment as well, which was about 18 treatments every 3 weeks for over a year. So it was quite a journey, Linda, just after, being at the incubator. And then you can imagine, you're living in the limelight, you're representing the organization at events like Top Women in Business. You are the face of this incubator, you are running sessions, you this live person, and then you just get like cut off at the knees, and you have to find your way back through this horrible journey that I was on, but also took a lot of lessons from it. And during that time, I also continued writing thought leadership pieces on platforms like LinkedIn, and that's where we managed to actually sign on clients while I was still recovering from this journey.
So yeah, and that was a pause for you. And I think, when these forced pauses come, especially when they're painful that like that, and they are the valleys of life, as you say, sometimes they're not timed well from the support of the corporate salary, and we have to dig deep. And many of us go through those moments, and I think they build the character of who we become, and also help us to realize what's really important going forward. So tell us a little bit about what Yeti is. So for those that are on the call that don't know, so share with us what you're doing now.
Thank you. So YIDI is the Youth Innovation Entrepreneurship Design Institute. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, we're one of the best kept secrets. We run entrepreneurship and development programs like I did at the incubator, but now we get to do it for several corporates. So we run a program for three multinationals, one of them being IBM. We have been running a program for them for the last 6 years, in fact. So when we join individuals and we come to know companies like Linda, we tend to stick with them for a very long time. We also have a couple of other large technology multinationals. We've actually delivered work for three of the top five banks in the country, and we do work for many other large corporates, including just signing a client within the mining sector and one of our first retail clients. So we behind the scenes, it's the way that we like running the business. You'll see a tiny sign on some of the call for entries that say powered by YIDI, but it's actually known as either an IBM Tech Scale program or a Propreneur program or a GD technology program or this mining program that we'll be running. But it's an amazing, if I may say so myself, it's an amazing organization. I get to live my passion every day. We, even during my journey with cancer, during having COVID in between in 2021, where I was hospitalized for 6 weeks, and then having cancer again just last year, the company still runs because although I am the face of a lot of what we do, I'm not the only person that does it. I surround myself by really amazing individuals who are able to run the company when I'm not. And maybe, that's a lesson in terms of the way we've designed the organization, Linda. And I know some of your listeners might, find value in something like this as well. You cannot ever grow your company on just your capacity to deliver. So you've got to surround yourself by individuals that are smarter than you are, individuals that are able to hold the baton when you are not able to, and individuals that align to your value system because they are the ones that will ultimately represent your business. So sometimes, the individuals we work, they are confused for, oh, you work for YIDI. And actually, we don't employ individuals permanently. We have two permanent staff members, and that's it. But we have 70 technical experts that we pull in to do the work that really matters. And, that's what we've done, Linda, with Yidi. I hope that answered your question around the organization itself.
Wonderful. And you've moved back to KZN from Johannesburg to your kind of place where you grew up and are living in Belito. Am I right?
Yeah, so not quite where I grew up, but I do live in KZN now. At least I'm in the same province. The plan was always to come back to KZN. My husband and I joked about it ever since we were very young. We said we will retire in KZN. So we're not quite retired yet. We on what we call a soft retirement. It's harder sometimes than others. We run the business from here. We moved here 3 years ago, but as I mentioned, the plan was only to move around now. But I had COVID in 2021 as I mentioned, I was hospitalized with my husband for 6 weeks, fighting to breathe. And when we got back to Johannesburg, we literally could not breathe. I mean, it was hard to breathe. My lungs still don't operate at 100% capacity. So I do get tired a little quicker than I used to, but living in KZN is a lot better. The plan was, to live with my mom. We had bought her a property, but unfortunately, she passed in 2021 while I was in hospital with COVID. So we decided not to live in the house that we bought for her. It was just a bit too painful. So we decided to move into the property we invested in Belito, and we live here now and we run the business from here.
Wonderful. You went to a very traumatic time during COVID, with the loss of your mom and both of you. I watched that part of your journey and prayed for you often. So
Thank
you are never going to retire. You're not that kind of person. You can say refire, Jayshree, but you can never say
you.
retire. We know that word is gone in 100-year life. And I think when we run our own business with passion, and many like you are able to discover that before you get to a formal pensionable age by a company. But for everybody else, we have a gift season and we can create that. And then we choose when we stop or when we slow down or who we surround ourselves with to hold the baton when we can't. So those are incredible lessons that you know have shared. You invited me to a Womex event here in Cape Town last year, I think, or 2 years ago. I can't even
The year
remember.
before. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit
2020.
about the second organization that you're running.
Oh, I'm so passionate about Womex. Whenever I speak about Womex, I start smiling. But Womex is something that I decided to launch in 2023. And the reason I launched Womex was so that we could offer a program that was specifically targeted to women in business. And I literally sat down around, at my dining room table, and I said to Jay, this is something, Jay's my husband and better half, I always say. But I said to him, I really want to do a program for women. And I know we're doing programs for large corporates, but I really feel that we need to do something specifically for women because I had done it previously, in other organizations. And I know the power it has to transform lives. So I picked up my phone and I called 10 individuals and asked them, would you like to test something with me? And would you offer your expertise if I find a group of women? And 9 of them said yes. And one said, not right now, but maybe next time. So I called the 11th person on my list and she said yes. And then we had, amazing 10 individuals that was helping me to build a prototype. So we ran a program for 150 women in business. We were supposed to do it for 100, but we had close to 700 applications and we couldn't say no to so many individuals. So we cut it off at 150 individuals and we ran our first program at our cost from a Yidi perspective and having some technical experts as volunteers. And I personally program managed this initiative and I absolutely loved it. We then created a business case around the results in terms of the impact it had made on some of the women's lives. And we then took this to large organizations. I wrote 17 proposals. One of them were accepted. And Nedbank actually sponsored our first accelerator, first formal accelerator with 50 women in business last year. I mean, I was just looking at some of the stats earlier. I did a LinkedIn post. 368 jobs have been created from these 50 women in business. I mean, that's an average of 3.6 per business. Over 50 million rands in revenue increase amongst these 50 women. And, it's something that I think is just mind-blowing, amazing. But more than that, it's become a community where they can speak to one another, they can engage with each other, they can come together and support one another. And every single technical expert is a female because I have nothing against men. I love men. I love my husband. I've been with him for 36 years. I love my son, but I'm tired of attending women's conferences and then you've got three men on a panel with one lady. Or, you've got, and so there's nothing, I don't have anything against amazing men that are opening paths for women, but we've got to start changing the narrative and putting women on stage that can tell a story and can inspire others. So we have more role models for each other and for our kids. So every single technical expert is a woman and amazing at what they do. So they're not trainers. They are individuals that run their own businesses. And we're launching our second conference on the 20th of August. And this time we're very ambitious. We're doing it in Ballito, in Sandton, and in Cape Town, all on the same day. And we've got just amazing individuals sharing their stories. And with that, we're also launching the Womex book, which will feature great stories of women like I'm hoping like you, Linda, who started a business, has a story to tell, and you can then inspire others. So I'm passionate about Womex, so sorry if I went over my time, but that's what Womex is all about.
No, I know you're passionate about them. I have seen that throughout your career. And I love being in the room at Nedbank here in Cape Town. And I certainly will be there on the 20th of August. I've marked it in my diary already. I'm just not sure if I should come to Ballito or go to Cape Town.
Wherever. I would love to have you in Ballito. I'm actually hosting the one in Ballito. Well,
Yeah.
we've got a program director, but I'll be here. Raksha's in Santon, and we've got another amazing lady, Anissa Teron, who will be program directing in Cape Town. So wherever you choose to find yourself that day, I would love for you to be there.
We'll put all these details because I see there are some people asking all questions as we're going along in my letter to everybody who has registered. And I know that in this program you haven't focused just on the youth. There are some women in their 50s that are on the program. Am I right?
Absolutely. We've got a couple of them in over 50. When we ran the first program, we have 50 youth and then 100 businesses that, we're not categorized as youth. So on this program as well, we've got 18 that are under 35 and all the others are over 35. And yes, there are some that are over 50 as well.
Great, wonderful. Is there a specific project, and you've had so many, that you're particularly proud of?
I'm particularly proud of Womex. I can't lie. It's one of my favorites. It's because, of the impact it has every day and the stories I get to hear every day and the continuous WhatsApps I receive on, how it's changed people's lives. And maybe as we go along, I'm only 52 right now. So I think there's a long journey ahead of me. And maybe something else will come up later. But at this point in my life, I'm extremely proud of what we've been able to achieve in such a short time with Womex and just, the impact that it's had on so many women's lives.
That's where longevity really makes the difference. In one of my international networks that I belong to, our founder died sadly 3 weeks ago at 93. She ran and started three new businesses in her 60s and beyond. So there are still many years ahead because it is the learning and the connections and purpose that keep us alive and mentally fit for longer. That doesn't mean we've got to be at work all day, every day, but it certainly makes a difference to be able to navigate your own journey with your passion and your skills. So, is there one last piece of encouragement? You have given us many that you can share with everybody, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Yes, well, besides me loving the work that you do, I love reading some of these self-help books. And one of them I read talks about Japanese philosophy, and they don't actually have a word for retirement because it's not something that is in their headspace. It doesn't mean they don't stop working. It just means they're always doing something that's meaningful and something that's impactful within their communities or within each other. So I don't believe that there's an age limit to making an impact on individuals' lives. I don't believe there's an age limit on, being youthful and learning new things and new technologies. And I just want to encourage everyone that, when I had the conversation with Linda, I remember once there was an opportunity to feature in the 40 under 40, and I was just over 40, and I was like, I'm too old for that. And now that I'm 52, I'm like, you know what? I have so much more living to live and, stuff that I want to do and lives that I want to change. So just be the best version of yourself. And my favorite saying, Linda, in a world where you can be anything, just be kind.
Wonderful. Thank you. That we know about you. You certainly are. So thank you, Jayshree. That's wonderful. So if there's anyone who would like to ask a question, either raise the mechanical hand from the bottom. It's easier that way because then we can see you better. Also, put your cameras on if you can. That would be wonderful. Devni, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, but lovely if you can put your camera on, but if you can't, we understand.
Hi, Linda. Thanks for the invite. I joined pretty last minute. I'm at the airport, and out of the country, so I prefer not. I think there'll be too much background noise.
Perfect.
But thank you so much for the invite. I literally joined, I think, an hour or so before it reached my inbox. An amazing conversation. And yeah, I slotted it into my day, even though I'm on. I'm traveling. Jayshree, lovely to meet and hear you. I love the fact that your story has been so authentic, and it was so easy to understand your journey. I've done a little bit of pivoting in my career as well, um, but I think it's quite inspirational to hear your journey, despite all the adversities that came with it. What you're doing and continue to do, and is really inspiring. I'm currently, so I also started out in banking. I also am ex chats with ex Belito, believe it or not. So a lot of similarities. So it was lovely to hear your storyline. But being in Johannesburg, currently overseas, moved out of the country for a bit, decided to move to Europe where I am currently, but moved between here and South Africa, and moved out of banking completely after 19 years into the beauty industry. And now I'm in sports. So I'm the HR director for Cricket South Africa. So we're still reeling from our win this weekend. But I think what I'd like to know, one of the things we're trying to do in professional sport is advance women. Cricket, like many other international sports, you don't have longevity in your career. Your retirement age is literally around 35 years. And so what we're trying to do around, our women at the moment is to help them transition back um, into some kind of corporate environment post their journeys, not just as coaches or but really into back into corporate, because we think they can add so much more value. Um, taking their off the field experience and bringing it back into the office environment. Have you done or consider doing any programs around women advancement for the sporting world? I know corporates have been your first love, having come out of it, but is that something that you've done or is on your radar to do?
So I'm sure Linda will tell you this as well, but it doesn't matter which sector. So we don't focus on just the corporates because the individuals that are on our programs come from every possible sector. So we've got representativity across 29 sectors on our programs, and we've done sector-specific programs. But the skills that you teach an individual can be applied to any industry or any sector. And that includes when you take them back into that sector in terms of whether they are becoming a supplier into that sector, offering a service, or becoming a mentor, a life coach type individual. It's the business skills and the life skills that you need to teach them in order to hone their craft outside of their current role. So if they're a sports person, we had Cricket South Africa. I'm not sure if you remember, Linda, just down the road from the incubator. So we actually did have a conversation with them once to see if there was exactly this, an opportunity to create a program for the individuals that are currently playing sports, but at 35, like you said, they're going to have to start pivoting and looking at other roles. So what is it that you could create for those individuals? So happy to have a conversation outside of this, and I can give you some ideas of how we've done sector-specific accelerators as well, which is what we would refer to when we talk about the specific sector.
Okay. No,
Thanks. That
great.
was a
Thanks,
great
Jayshree. We
question.
will connect. Thanks so much. Thanks.
Anybody
Thanks,
else?
Stephanie.
Comments or questions? Jane, was there anything in the chat box? Dave?
It was just Debbie's Debney's
Okay.
question, so we've done that. Yeah.
Hi, Jayshree. Lovely to see you.
Hi,
Just wanted,
Dave. Good to see you again. It's been a while.
indeed, yeah. No, I just wanted to say I'm so sorry I missed the first part of the conversation. You're one of our heroes. Thanks to you, we exist. When you were at Standard Bank at the incubator, it was amazing. And maybe we should pick up again, give you an update on where we are. And maybe we should be working together. Women empowerment, as you know, is one of our key drivers as well. So if we can help, we'd love to.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dave. And thanks for reaching out on LinkedIn. Apologies if I haven't been very communicative, but I will definitely connect on that query that you sent through as well.
Thanks,
You're a
Dave.
very
Dave's
special,
also
very special person.
Thank you so much, Dave. I appreciate that.
Dave heads up the National Mentoring Movement, for those who don't know, and we have a number of MPO partners, and we have a great relationship with the National Mentoring Movement as well at 50 plus. So thanks for being here, Dave. Anyone else?
So, Linda, I was going through your chat and I see there are some other comments on there as well. Do you mind if I just go and tackle some of them?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so someone asked, how do you spell Womex? I've put down the Womex website address in the chat as well. It's womx.co.za, and you can get information on the conference there as well. And Carla says, I'm in the Women's Property Network and creating spaces for women that lead and grow. I would love to connect. We'd love to connect to you as well, Carla. Thank you so much for that. And Devani's probably jumped off the call right now, but thank you so much for those wonderful comments. And then Dave, your comment. Oh, so that was it. Sorry, I thought I saw another question in there as well. But thank you, Sharon, for those comments as well, making a big difference. I really appreciate that. Every life you touch allows that life to touch someone else's. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Linda. I don't know if there's any other questions from anyone
From there,
on
but I see Renelle has her hand up. Go for it, Renelle.
Hi. Thank you, Jayshree, for sharing your story. There was some similarities. You were talking at the age of 29. I was also in the banking sector, and then joined the Exco team in a training and development space. So that's a whole story of its own. And currently, I have been asked to create a skills campus for the Waterberg. So we're starting from scratch. And it's been a 2-week roller coaster. And even yesterday, we had a youth program event in Bella Bella. And it was so rich in information. So the team that I have surrounded myself with at the moment, we're just debriefing on what we saw and what we noticed. And also part of the local economic development forum, I met some wonderful women in the forum. So this week it's me and them, looking at how do we collaborate and really work on youth development, and specifically around the tourism space. So I've written down everything. So somewhere in in it could be a month or more. Would love to connect
Yeah.
and
Well, that's
see.
amazing. I mean, thank you for that feedback. There's actually a youth tourism event happening on the 26th, in June, of the 26th of June. I'll send you some details. We are actually involved with that with another business partner. I didn't mention this, Linda, earlier, but it's also something I'm extremely proud of, the work that we're doing with York Zuki, in 450 countries around the world, where we are setting up free entrepreneurship academies for anyone that needs it. So we are working with this tourism initiative for the youth. Happy to share the details, Ronelle. I can share it with Linda, and she can share it through with you, because our team will be facilitating a few conversations there, and we are setting up an academy, and we're working with another initiative for 20,000 schools in South Africa, trying to roll out free entrepreneurial education for the youth, because the jobs of tomorrow don't exist today. So we've got to teach young individuals to become job creators and not job consumers. So it's something we're extremely passionate about. And, we are the representatives in South Africa for Startup Tribe. So happy to see how we can offer some of that for you as well, Ronelle. So let's keep in touch.
So thanks, Jayshree. We also have the Learning Academy with the Startup Tribe, so we're all on the same page about how we need to create and grow skills regardless of our age going forward. But then we have to, as you say, go industry specific to really drill down. But Ronelle, what I'm really loving about the stories for you is watching a really skilled, great 50 plus member who's moved and semigrated to Bella Bella and then taken on the task of creating value in an area with a whole bunch of skills and value. And in the 3 or 4 conversations we've had between For Good and Fix Local, and now this discussion, it's wonderful to see the richness of what's going to happen in Bella Bella. I hope you're writing it up for us as a story, because I think it can be duplicated elsewhere, and that might be part of your learning as well. So you're deep in it at the moment, and we are deeply grateful.
No, thank you. Yeah. So I am writing stuff. We'll see what it looks like.
Good, wonderful. Jenny, you had your hand up, so take yourself off mute. You're
Right, I've got to turn off my screen reader. Hang on. All right. Yeah, so it's quite interesting. So I'm an entrepreneur, a business owner, and learning is failing and learning forward, failing forward is a daily occurrence. That I'm just getting a new business partner who is 24. So I'm in my late 50s, who's 24, coming on board. And actually, he's going to be mentoring me in our program, because I realized there are things that I can't do that he can. So very encouraged by your story and your journey, through cancer and things, just working out what the life process is. But what I want to ask is, in the process, do you have any incubators related to people with disabilities? As myself and my business partner are both visually impaired.
I don't, but that doesn't mean we won't have something like that going forward. And, the beauty part with technology, and you would know this, being visually impaired, the beauty part about a lot of what we do now is that it's become so much more accessible to people with disabilities with the use, of technology. And, being able to narrate the captions and, all of the work that we do, we now know that individuals access this that are actually, either visually impaired or hearing impaired. So that's been amazing for us, to actually watch how individuals access our content so much more than they used to in the early days when we did not have these technologies available.
Yeah, it's a good time in history to be blind. I agree, and but also realizing that this also has implications for the senior sector as people lose their hearing and lose their sight. So yeah, we're looking at the design of interfaces to include people. So encouraged by your story, and would love to know a little bit more about WOMAX.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I really appreciate that. That is amazing feedback as well. And what you were referring to is what we used to call, and I think Dave, you can come in here, but we used to call that reverse mentoring, because you do actually learn so much more from either the younger individuals or the older individuals you bring into your organization, depending on where you are in your journey. So it's always important to allow room for that reverse mentoring to happen.
And I think that this is a part where a lot of the, the incubators or the funding comes along for young entrepreneurs. So it's sometimes a lonely space. So it's very nice to hear that you do have incubators for that. But also, say, for instance, I'd want to join up to promote the younger partner in my business. But does that mean I need to give over my business into, majority of my business into his hands? To like working capital or whatever to get our products to market, going, things like that.
So it all depends on who our funder is on a program. So when we do programs, some of them are open to any type of business. Sometimes it comes from enterprise and supply development. So they have to have 51% Black ownership. But for example, we do a lot of free programs with the entrepreneurship, with the startup tribe, and that's open to anyone. Our mentorship Mondays that Linda's been part of, and we advertise all of that on our YouTube channel for free, is available to anyone. So it's not, you don't have to be young or old, black or white, whatever age. We have no restrictions on who can access that. And all of that is free as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. And
just to add to that,
I'll get to you now, Dave. Jenny's been involved a lot in the accessibility of tech from a disability perspective. So I think there's some great magic that can happen. Sorry, Dave, over to you.
Yeah, peer mentor, or rather reverse mentoring can be tricky because of the mismatch in a way, the reverse mismatch in power stroke knowledge. But handled with maturity and with trust, it can be really very effective because both of you have to learn from one another. And mentorship works best when it feels like a group of people who are there, two people who want to learn from one another. So creating that level of trust is important. I'm pretty sure we could find a mentor if you're interested besides that, outside of that relationship. We've done work with stroke victims. We've had people who are really interested who've had, I have a niece who's very much into the disability scene. She has a doctorate. She's very into deaf, into the hard of hearing, etc. So if you are interested, if you could reach out maybe via Linda or via Jane, we can see if we could find someone for you. It's also for free. It's are you on mute?
Still on mute, Jane. Still on mute.
Okay, but yeah, if you connect us, if you connect us, I'm sure we can do something.
There you are.
Sorry, I ran into my phone speaking as well as Dave speaking, but very valuable input, as well as I realized also the value, with trust comes if we stick to the value of the business. And so to keep the value strong so he can get on and do all that technical stuff, I can't. Yeah, thank you for that.
There's a question in the chat from Brandon.
From Brandon, yeah.
Okay. When pivoting careers, are there experiments or tests you can share from your journey that shows how we can test before making the decision?
Thank you for that, Brandon. Brandon's actually part of our team, but yes, exactly how we've done WOMIX. You know, they say the best way to build a ticking clock, Linda, when I used to teach innovation is just build it. Because sometimes we overthink, you know, when we want to do something. And like you know, you did your studies, you launched 50 plus. It was an amazing, you know, way to test something with a market that you knew and understood. So sometimes the best way to do this is to actually just go out there and do something. Because when we overthink, you know, what is it that we need to do? How do we need to do it? It's the lean startup methodology, you know, that I can encourage people to investigate and do is build something, go out, find a market, let them use it, let them give you feedback, you know, come back, put those ideas that they've given you back into your product, go back there, test it again, and use those changes to actually launch something. But don't make the mistake of overthinking, because when we do, we end up not doing anything.
Thank you, Jayshree.
Linda, I've also put the link to our YouTube channel on the chat. If anyone wants to access any of the past free sessions that we've done, including the one with Linda, you're welcome to find it there as well.
Thanks, Jayshree. That's fantastic. Anybody else? We have probably one more question, or time, should I say, for one more? Happy? All right. So, Jayshree, thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a fabulous conversation and dialogue. And I love these conversations because they're so rich in the people who are attending and in the questions and the opportunities that come as a result of the questions. And I wish for everyone at least one second act so that you can create a new ladder with passion and purpose in the Ikigai Japanese way of doing what you love, doing what the world needs. If you can get paid for it, it's wonderful, but meaning is also a currency in this season of life. And we so appreciate you giving up the time for us today. So thank you so much, Jayshree.
Oh, thank you so much, Linda. Thank you everyone for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I just shared my story with the Buddies magazine the other day on my cancer journey. So it was lovely having this type of conversation with you today, Linda. I appreciate you so much in the work that you do. And thank you for allowing me to refire in a way that aligns to all the beautiful things that you're trying to teach others as well. So thank you, everyone, and lovely meeting all of you.
Thank you. Enjoy your afternoon,
Thanks so
everyone.
much, Jayshree. Cheers,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jayshree.